Good to go? Good evening. We'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board to order for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015. If you'd all please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, retire roll call, please.
Okay, Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff President is Manager Gerard. Committee members here are John Marks from the ZBA, Mike Springer from Recreation and Roads, and Dave Wiegand from Recreation, Roads, and the Planning Commission.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda includes those items that typically do not require immediate board deliberation or action. This evening's includes the approval of the prior meeting minutes of January 20th, received committee reports, Planning Commission minutes from November 12th and December 10th, the Rec Committee special meeting agenda from February 3rd, and the minutes from December 16th, Fire Department draft meeting minutes of January 12th, Fire Department draft officers meeting minutes of January 12th, Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority's meeting minutes of January 21st, bills payable in the amount of $163,183.29. And the financial statements are already pulled out for no apparent reason on your agenda as well. And item number 5 on the agenda should really have been included under the consent agenda as
D.
D. Clerk Rattari.
Okay, I got a couple things here on the prior meeting minutes of January 20th. On page 2, on the board members' copies, halfway down the page, where Trustee Durant commented about the library meeting, and that she and the Supervisor Limata attended instead of her. So that's changes in red. Then on page 5, under public comment where Kathy Peters commented, on the second line down, it should read the corner of Brickyard Road and US 41. So it clarifies that location. So those are some changes in the draft minutes. And I would like to remove bills payable from the consent agenda, and we'll add it to the regular agenda when we get there.
Going to be under 10E.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion to approve the change to the draft meeting minutes and the removal of the bills payable.
Second.
Motion and second. Do you want to include in that the financial statements?
Yeah, and also in that motion,
Or D.
I'll put the financial statements from number 5 to D. Is that amenable with you, Trustee
Yes.
LaRue?
Yes.
Any other board members wishing to make changes to the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Next item on our agenda would be the approval of the remainder of the agenda. Any items that any board member would wish to add or correct on the agenda as presented or as amended? Clerk, sorry.
At this time, I'll add the bills payable and into new business, which will be, I believe, E.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other changes? Seeing none. Somebody care to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Support.
Motion support to approve as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. That'll bring us up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to address this board may do so at this time.
Mike and I are here from the rec committee, just to keep the board up to date on what we're doing with the next grant cycle that's coming along. We have to start working on it now to get our intents filed with the state in order to later on apply for the actual grants. And we're looking at 2 grants. One, the passport grant, concerns itself with Lions Field, and what we're going to try and do with that is we're going to try and put the walkway around the perimeter of the park along with the picnic tables and the cooking grills as per the initial concept design. And Mike can give you the numbers on that. The other one we're trying to do is over at Schwemmwood, and we want to do the parking lot improvements to connect to the trailhead connection that we got approval for this past year that the state has not yet awarded yet, but we're anticipating it one of these days. The parking lot will connect to that. So that will be in this coming small grant cycle. And Mike can give you and both of those come out of the opinion of costs that were originally developed by UPEA from last year or 2 years ago. And Mike can give you the particulars on it.
Just a little history here. Last year we applied for 4 grants. We were awarded a Cliff Lundeen grant that is currently helping fund the warming building. We also were, Dave alluded to the one grant, a Michigan Natural Resource small grant for $49,600 total. But that hasn't been fulfilled yet. So these are viable grants that we want to continue to pursue. In 2015, actually if you look at the results from the last couple of years, any small Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant was awarded. That means anything that was requested that was $50,000 or less was awarded. And I'm going to talk about that grant first. Just briefly, what it would entail, as Dave pointed out, this would be for $67,600, and the state would cover $50,000 of that, and the township would have to come up with a total of $17,600. But we have $12,000 left over from the Iron Ore Rec Authority, from the grant that we received from them. So that would leave us with 8% of the cost, or $5,600. I'm going to just pass that. We're going to be coming back and doing a fuller presentation, but I know you're looking at tax tribunal issues, and I know that funding is definitely an issue. But we think for $5,600, leveraging that money 8 times is well worth it. We'll talk to you more about that. On the Lions Field, the total on that is $61,000, and we would be applying for the maximum of $45,000 that the passport grant allows. That would still leave us with a 26% match, and that would be $16,000. Now we're also hoping that we can apply for a Cliff Lundeen grant to totally take care of that. That would be a small amount, but we do not know that, we haven't approached them yet on that, but we will do that soon. So those are 2 grants that the Rec Committee and Mr. McCarthy plan to work towards this year, and we hope that we'll enjoy the same unanimous support that we have had in the past. You have a real active rec committee here. We're doing a lot of stuff, and certainly by being able to leverage whatever investment money we can put into recreation, by being able to leverage those monies, we can do a lot more. So this is a timeline. We just had a special committee meeting of the rec committee, and to move ahead with this. And then I'm just going to read these off, and then I'll pass this down. We hope to have a Planning Commission public hearing on Wednesday, February the 25th at 7 p.m. The board meeting, we'd do a first reading with you. Hopefully you would have that on your agenda for Tuesday, March the 3rd at 7 p.m. Board second reading and certified resolution, that's what we would need at that time, would occur hopefully on Tuesday, March the 17th. And then Mr. McCarthy and I plan to have the applications submitted by March the 23rd. So here's a graph of the Lions Field proposal and the timeline.
If I could add in there, we realize that there's revenue streams that are seriously being affected by the tax tribunal decision. And what we're hoping as a rec committee is it either the impact isn't as large as we're anticipating, or that we can get some other grants to cover it. The issue we want to move forward with right now is the application process, because if you don't start it, regardless of what changes, you can't continue forward with the application. We can stop it any time in the process that the board decides we're in dire straits and we need to rein it back in. I mean, that can happen any time, all the way up to the award of the grant, which is at the end of the year. So we're not asking you today to put out money that you really don't have to put out yet. We're just asking for your consent that we go ahead and move forward with the application process, so that in the event we find the funding we need, that we can meet the grant deadlines.
Thanks, gentlemen. Because it wasn't on the regular agenda to discuss, and I know the board may have some questions on it, will be on the next agenda, which would be before your timeline as far as the first reading goes. At that time, we can discuss if the board supports both grants moving forward, if that's the direction we're moving in. It would also give us time to have Randy do some research on funding, because again, for us to commit the dollars with the revenue stream being under attack, unfortunately, like we said, those are the things that are non-essential that get cut out, unfortunately, when we bump up against the tax tribunal valuations that we did. So the board will make a determination for you. I know the board did tell you before that it was fine to pursue and to look into the grants. I realize you're under a time constraint. I appreciate the timeline that you provided us. We'll be on the next agenda for full board discussion and either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Mike. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board with public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, go to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to make comment, do so at this time. Ben, start with you.
Okay. I want to give you a little update on the trip we made down to Grand Rapids. And I'm not going to drag all this out and go through every meeting, but
Lynn, can I just interrupt you? I think
Yes.
that under that unfinished business report on the MTA.
I thought maybe that was
big bucks
something you were going to do.
discussions, I think we'll just open it up at that time.
You there?
if that's
Okay, that's fine. Then I don't have a planning report either, because we didn't have a meeting last week, which was good for me since I was gone anyway. Worked out good.
Okay.
Okay.
That way
Good.
you don't have to limit yourself. You can take as much time as you like.
Ooh.
Wait a minute.
I can do it, Dennis.
Wait a minute. Diana?
I'm good.
Clerk, sorry.
We do have an election coming up in May. It doesn't seem like it's that far, but it will be here before you know it. Make sure you're registered 30 days in advance to vote in that election. So you got to be registered. You got to be registered to vote in early April by that 5th day in April in order to vote in that May election. So that's all I have to say.
Dan?
I attended the fire department officers meeting last night as a representative from the board, and just a couple of highlights of the meeting. There was discussion February 24th, 25th, and 26th. Ron and Rob will be downstate for a fireworks seminar, training / whatever. During that time, there will be at least 2 people at the hall. One of them will be an EMT to cover any calls during the day. The Marquette County firefighters will be meeting at our hall on the 17th of February. And they're in the preliminary stages of looking into purchasing a different software for EMS fire reporting to replace the one we have now. It's just in the preliminary stages right now. It's getting some quotes. So other than that,
Pete? One comment. First, I saw in the meeting minutes, then I talked to Assistant Chief Dan Shanahan about Trustee Pompo's decision to retire from the fire department, and I wanted to first off say thank you for all the years of service, Dan. It was probably a bittersweet moment for you to turn in a retirement from something that you've dedicated so much time to, but I really wanted to say on behalf of the board, thank you so much for your service and your continued service to this township. Secondly, I'd just like to address any rumors that may be out there that my time here is short. Both for the board and employees as well as members of the public, I want to assure you that I fully intend to be here and fill out my term as the Marquette Charter Township Supervisor. Those of you who know that I am separated from employment from my prior employer, and that I'm certainly looking at all available options, but that having been said, I just want to squash those rumors now and let you know that I fully intend that I'll be in this seat for the next couple of years, so we can just eliminate any of the uncertainty that may be out there. Since it came back to me that I was leaving, I thought maybe I'd clear that up because it was news to me. That's it, thanks. We'll close board member comment, move to unfinished business. Under 9A, we have a report on the Michigan Townships Association as well as big box discussions. As you know, every year the Michigan Townships Association holds their annual educational conference. This year was down in Grand Rapids. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but several of our board members did attend, and they are going to provide us with reports on some of the things that they learned, some of the things that some of the seminars that they attended, and generally provide us with an update. And then I believe that both Randy and Pete had an update to the Michigan Tax Tribunal big box discussions for conversations that they had with the MTA leadership while they were down there. And with that, I'll open it up to whoever wants to. Lynn, since you started already, we'll go ahead and let you start.
Let's see how slow I can talk here. One of the things I find the most interesting is the legislative update, and if you get a chance to, and I don't know how much time you spend looking at those emails that we get from all the different lawyers and the MTA, that's the big eye-opener. It's all the things that have been already passed in 14 and everything that's coming up. It's kind of scary, really. I've got probably more notes on that class or session, I guess they call them breakout sessions, than anything. It's just pretty amazing. So I just wanted to kind of encourage you to read those if you hadn't already. I tried to spend as much time as I could learning about the vote on May 5th, because as a business owner, that impacts me quite a bit. I've got a use tax that I'm paying 6% on now, so that would be 7%, and then I have the room assessment tourism tax, if you want to call it. It's an assessment, it's not a tax, so there's another 6%. So my guests are going to be paying 13% if this goes through, and they're already griping at 12%. So I had a dual hat on here when I was looking at this. The few people I talked to, I couldn't get an answer on. They were vague. I talked to one of the gentlemen at the vendor soiree that we had, and apparently I talked to somebody else after that, and he was just a fill-in. He didn't really know all the nuts and bolts of it quite as much. Tried to get some information from one of the other classes, and they were kind of vague. So I thought, we're going to have, I had signed up for the legislative hour afterward, after one of the other days. And we were supposed to have all the UP representatives there, Casperson and Diondi and McBroom and Kivila. and nobody showed up. Kivila had a good excuse. He had a family emergency. But I thought, well, Lieutenant Governor's here. I'm going to just ask him. So I went up to him as he was kind of walking out, and I said, I've got to ask a question. Point me to somebody that understands this, because I have lots of issues coming back to the township. And he said, oh, I can explain it to you. And he did a pretty good job breaking down. I got 2 flyers. One of them says we'll save 39 cents a gallon, and then the flip side of that is that we get charged 42 cents a gallon, so the net result is approximately 3 cents. It's not a big deal. It's what happens to that money that makes a difference. And I said, is this a way of making the schools whole by increasing the tax and saying that they're going to get some of this money, the schools? Not that I care how it's split, but if we're calling this a gas tax and the majority of it goes to the schools, then that's not right. You know, it's got to be one way or the other. So he broke it down pretty quickly. But the other part of this, too, is that the roads are going to be getting, the road commissions, I think it's like 1.2 billion or whatever, they're going to be able to pay off debt. Because he said, well, the road commission's in favor of this, too. And I said, why? And he says, well, because they're going to be able to pay off debt. Well, now wait a minute. I mean, that's important, but so I printed out, there's probably 6 or 8 different public acts that are attached to this. And this one does this one and that one, so I'm going to read the whole thing and see if I can figure out whether this is good for the townships. They're talking about making the townships more whole also. So, I mean, this is 1%. How are we going to be able to fill all these pots? I'm just real skeptical. So that was where I spent a big part of my time. It was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it was the personal property tax or the TIF class that I took, and Dan was in there with me. And after the class, the gentleman sitting in front of us turned around and he said, did you know, he says, I just read in the Traverse City paper that there's some tax tribunal thing going on, and all these big box stores are going to be asking for tax money back. And I looked at him, I said, is this the first you've heard of this? And he said, yeah, I just read it in the paper yesterday. And I went, we've been dealing with this for 4 years. So there's a lot of people out there that have no clue what's going on, much less the impact. And in about 3 years, it's going to hit them, which is kind of scary. So the personal property tax was kind of dry. I took quite a few notes on it, but it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. That's just too involved. And I didn't know anything really about tax increment financing, so I definitely took that one. And that was an eye-opener, too, because there are 10 different TIFs. I thought it was just one thing. But the brownfield and the DDA and all of those fall under that same category. So that was very educational for me. It was an awesome, you know, I don't think I've ever had a bad MTA convention. There's always something you take from it. It's either the speaker, who I actually went to his session after that too. They always do the opening session for the first hour and a half or so, and then they'll have a breakout session usually right after it, or, you know, a couple hours later. And his was a little more about leadership and stuff, which was the theme of the whole conference anyway. It was how to lead. And then MTA went through a policy review from the Board of Directors, because on Friday morning, it's kind of an amazing thing to have 915 were registered voters this year of all the legislators that were there. We consider ourselves legislators. So this big conference room was full, and we went through 54, I think, different, what would you call them, premises, I guess, that MTA is going to deal with in the next year with the legislature and all the PAC people who they partner with. And it was pretty amazing to think that they covered everything from taxes on mobile homes to the roads, and we had a lot of discussion. Quite a few people got up and decided, you know, are we going to have, I just lost it. Are we going to have Yeah, street party tickets, that was a big thing. We had people on both sides, not both sides of the aisle, but both sides of the arena. Yes, we should, no, we shouldn't. That was pretty interesting because they didn't feel it should be a policy of MTA. It's our choice whether we want to vote straight ticket. And I guess I was just thinking it should be an option. If you want to vote straight ticket, go ahead. If you don't, it should be allowed on the ballot. But I think they were talking about April and not, or August and not November. So it was pretty interesting to see, you know, the whole process of people up on the dais and voting. Few years, sometimes we have to actually stand up because you can't tell the A's from the nays. It's pretty interesting. And how to sell your ideas. I enjoyed that one. That's what kind of helped me give Randy and Dennis a huge old question. I sent them an email with all these questions. So, you know, that kind of stuff is good because it gives you a chance to think from a different perspective and look at things differently. And I don't think there's anything we can't learn that isn't going to help us somehow in some facet. And it may not today. It did spark, you know, 7 or 8 questions for me. But who knows when this is going to happen in, you know, August, so something else might come up. So I just want to thank everybody for allowing us to go. It was, other than the bus ride, it was a really awesome conference. They always are. So that's really all I had.
Excellent. Ernie?
Oh, I have to apologize, mine's sitting on the kitchen table. A couple things, follow up on Lynn on the tax that we gotta vote on, or whatever you wanna call it, in May. I was at the same session she was, and the first year, if it's passed, $600,000 of that is going to pay off MDOT, part of MDOT's debt. The second year, $400,000 is going towards that. So it's gonna be the third year before you're gonna get the full $1.2 billion to do something with. So there was a lot of quietness when he brought that up in the actual session and that. So I attended 7 sessions there. The one session we attended at lunch was Lynn, I, Dan, and Pete on the big boxes, really, what amounts to a tax tribunal. The one thing that sticks in my mind is this attorney up there was talking about that. She said, this one law firm has sent out a mass mailing to all the businesses that it will not cost you a cent and you will save money doing it. And I think we all kind of looked at each other as to who that would be. And the other thing that she talked about is Walgreens, statewide. They're now going to try and do it statewide, take on everybody. So it's starting at this point in time. So it's there. I attend some other sessions. I'll have that for next time. And I apologize for that.
Thanks, Ernie. Dan?
Well, I did attend some of the same sessions that Lynn and Ernie attended, so I won't get into too much of what they said. The problem is when you get these things and you read the synopsis of what the sessions are, and you actually sit through them, you realize that it really wasn't you thought it was going to be. So it's, you know, so unfortunately, what you're planning on hearing, you don't really hear, but you do hear some information. So I guess the biggest one I want to comment on is, I went to the PPT one, and I took a lot from that personal property tax fund because I really didn't understand it that much, and now it seems to me a lot clearer. So I'm definitely glad I took that one. When we went to the MTA policy review, I thought that was excellent because, like Lynn said, the MTA has basically slimmed down their policies. Before, we would have 4 pages of policies that we would vote individually on each one of them at every session, and that final session would take 2.5 hours just on a voting alone. And they pretty much slimmed it down to the point where they consolidated a lot of different opinions into one solid fact. So, and it went pretty smooth except for the one issue against the street ballot party tickets. So I thought that was nice. But it gave us a chance, when we went to the policy review seminar, when we basically discussed it, actually some of their policies referred to the big box stores. They were definitely listening, and some of their policies that were adopted were driven by the big box store problems we're having. So, you know, they were there for that. And like they said, we went to one that said preserving your property tax base, thinking we were going to hear one thing, and really when we walked in there, all of us talked about was the big box store. And I thought that was very good. In fact, we kind of felt like we were kind of the presenter because we were the ones with all the information on it, and they kept referring to us every time there was a question. So that was kind of nice for us to really get the information out. I did attend one on budgeting, do's and don'ts, but that was I've been to that one before. It wasn't much of a change. The last one I went to, which I really liked, was the new MTA member salary survey that's on the website for the MTA. Board members can enter data into this survey, and at any time we can go and compare salary bases for any job that's in the other townships, including board members. And we can filter it out through population, through size of the township, through just about anything you would think of. There's a lot of information that goes into it. I did talk to Clerk Rattari about if we've actually did it, and he said that we are in the process of completing our end of that. It's a real easy survey to fill out. It's very user-friendly, and they're more than happy to help if there's any problems when you're trying to fill it out. So. We actually ran through a little synopsis of it. One of the members that was there that was having problems when they tried to enter it, they actually went online and actually entered her status. So it was very, very interesting. It was an amazing wealth of information that I think will only be an advantage to us in the long run. Other than that, like Lynn said, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to go down there. It's great. It's great to go to the sessions, but it's really great to sit down and meet. In fact, this time I think I met more of the people from our area than I met from downstate. And actually, we did learn a few things about some committees that we didn't know about that we're going to go into. But it was an excellent, like Lynn said, I don't think I've ever been to a bad MTA conference. So.
Again, there at the convention, there's 361 townships that attended the convention this year, and it was a busy, all the way through. I think if you add them all up, we probably had 10 or 11 sessions altogether. The biggest thing that that I realized that we're doing pretty much the right thing up here as far as our policies on different departments and stuff like that. We're on target with that. Dark stores was the biggest issue. I've talked to, what the heck was it, 14 different people outside of not the UP on dark stores, and asked them the question. They did not know. They always figured, well, after they get taken care of, we'll move the tax rate back where it belongs. I said, no, you can't. It's capped. You can't move it there, except for the cost of living. And then we start talking about the deeds and that you can't use it for something else after, and they have no idea. And that was my intent when I asked for a meeting with Larry and the rest of them down there, is that what do? You know, but people don't know. They read it in the books, and Larry come out and give me 3 pages of different emails of oh yeah, we mentioned here and here and here. But like Lynn said, they don't read it. They don't get it. They just don't get it. And so I thought if we start hollering about it more and do something, but one attorney, it wasn't an attorney, the president of the MTA said, do you really want to tell everybody about it? I said, well, it's a question that you have to answer, because the more you talk about it, more people are going to get on the bandwagon. So it's a fine line, but it's very unjust to do it this way. The more people you talk to explain everything, and you say, well, if that's wrong, that's wrong. Well, we know it's wrong. We send our assessors down to learn how to do assessing. They're certified. But then it comes to somebody doing something like that, they throw that out. So why are we spending money on assessors? But we have to do that. But I mean, that's basically what it is. Common sense don't come into play in this particular one. And so we have to find a way of punching holes in their arguments. Like I said, I've talked to, I think 14 people. I sat down in between our other meetings and sat down and talked to different people from different townships, and some of them are the same as I did last year. We follow up throughout the year when I got a problem about something. I just want to see what they do. I took all the townships attending. I went from 4,000 to 12,000. I highlighted them, and that's how I found the people I wanted to talk to. I marked down the population and that. So Randy's going to discuss the meeting that we had with those attorneys and the president of the MTA and stuff like that. But it was very worthwhile. I would say we pushed hard this time, and except for the nice bus ride home, a little chilly, but I was closer to the front, so the fat man wasn't too bad off. But our new representative for the MTA in our area is Jim Curtis from Ishmael Supervisor, Township Supervisor. He's our new rep. So, and Jim will do a great job when Bill left. So, again, I also want to thank the township for sending us. It's not a not a lot of fun, but I mean we can get a lot of information out there. It's there, like Danny said. There's some in there. You get into the meeting and you like to walk out, but take it. I think the biggest thing really is talking to the people in between our sessions and during the sessions and that. And I thought, we're doing pretty good up here, but this tax thing is really driving us crazy. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Manager Gerard?
Well, as trustees and Treasurer Johnson have already spoken, the MTA conference basically is an annual thing, and it is intended to be educational, primarily for the elected officials in the townships. Pretty well laid out. This year's theme was the will to lead, basically, and the program was structured around leadership. It was structured around the backgrounds and concepts that the leaders in the townships should be aware of and should be on top of and be paying consideration to as they go about their functions in their home communities. Unfortunately, as Trustee LaRue mentioned, there were about 340 townships represented out of the 1,200 townships that there are in the state, so about a quarter of the townships basically were there. And that's part of the issue that we wanted to address with the leadership of MTA. So Wednesday afternoon, after the sessions were completed, Trustee LaRue and I met with Larry Merrill, who's the executive director of the Michigan Township Association. And Larry had pulled together Doug Merchant, who's the current president, Denny Olson, who is our partner in this challenge with the big boxes out of Briding Township, who is also the immediate past president of the MTA, and Linda Preston, who is the incoming new president of the MTA, along with the MTA's attorneys, Rob Thal, who we've used previously on issues here in this township, so he's very familiar with us. And basically, the thrust of our discussion with them was, why is the MTA not more active in this process on our behalf and on Briding Township's behalf in really pushing statewide for townships to understand what this is at stake, basically, for the townships in dealing with the big boxes. And Treasurer Johnson's absolutely correct. We've known it from day one that the Honigman Law Firm out of Detroit basically sent mass mailings to all of the corporate offices telling them, in essence, it won't cost you a cent and we'll save you money. They're absolutely right. And the reason it won't cost the businesses a cent is because the Honigman fee was the first year's savings. So they had nothing to lose, basically, by taking this to the tax tribunal. And the insidious thing about the tax tribunal is that they fell victim to the argument that these vacant big boxes in southeastern Michigan were somehow economically disadvantaged and therefore deserved to have their tax costs cut, basically. The point that they significantly missed is that they were economically disadvantaged by choice. Most of those big boxes that closed in southeastern Michigan had deed restrictions on them, non-compete deed restrictions for 15 to 25 years, which meant that they could not be used again in a retail setting. So that's why they were being used in lower use or lower value uses like roller rinks and churches as opposed to big boxes. So that was the theory that they let slide, and that was one of the things that we were trying to attack in our challenge. That does not apply to an operating business, which we have. That didn't gain any traction with the tax tribunal. It didn't gain any traction with the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court for a number of reasons that we hear behind the scenes, opted not to hear the case. So our mission, basically, in talking with the leadership of the MTA, was for them to become more active. And they asked, what would you like us to do? As Pete mentioned, they said, we've done these articles, we've put the information out in the magazines. Now, we pointed out to them that that's all well and good. And, we all get the MTA magazine, we all read it. You have staff that work with you, but far and away, the majority of the townships in the state are general law townships. They don't have staff. They get the magazines at home. It sits on the table with all the rest of their piles and stacks of mails and bills, and eventually they might get to them and read them. That's not effective. They're not getting the message. As Pete mentioned, most of the people that we talked with, almost everybody, there was only one person I talked with down there that knew what I was talking about. None of the other participants had any clue of what we were talking about. When we addressed that with the MTA leadership, they said, well, what would you like us to do? And our response was, we'd like you to bring 1,200 supervisors to the governor's office is what we'd like you to do, and let the governor tell us why the tax tribunal is being allowed to do this. Let them know. Make sure that these individuals in the other townships understand what the insidious impact of this is. It's going to be 3 years before they get the impact of it. And that's when they're going to see it, and then it's way too late. Proposal A prohibits us from recovering any of that, so we'll be stuck. That's a 60% reduction in our revenues from that segment of the community. 60% reduction. Our costs haven't gone down. The cost of our infrastructure hasn't gone down. The cost of operating those systems hasn't gone down, but our revenue has. So my question to the MTA was, how do you suggest that we and the other townships continue to service these businesses? What are our options? They had no answers. We asked them what the prevailing opinion was and the prevailing attitude around Lansing was with regard to a potential legislative solution. And in essence, their answer was, outside of our local representatives, our 4 local representatives this is near and dear to their heart, nobody else is paying attention to it. They don't see it as an issue outside of the UP. They don't have the issue in their jurisdictions. Most of the representatives come from outside of township government, so they're not seeing it. It's townships that are seeing it. That's where the development is. That's where the big boxes typically are located. And what we pointed out to the MTA was, it won't be long, based on our experience, that it goes well beyond the big boxes and into residential settings. We've already got down to multifamily residential being appealed on the same basis or a very similar basis. They had nothing to offer us, basically, at all. There is, as Trustee Durant and Trustee Pompa have mentioned, in their policy platforms, they do have, I think, 2 or 3 items that address the big box issue. But again, if the other 900 townships don't know what that means and don't have the background in what that means, the policy platform isn't really going to do anything. So I guess the long and the short of it is, they told us, and you'll see it in one of my reports later on in the packet, that the likelihood of a legislative solution is slim at best. So I think we're stuck.
Thanks, Randy. Anything else from anyone? Seeing none, we'll close unfinished business, move to new business. Start with item number 10A. Consider committee appointments, community events. You do have in your spot the application from Brian Klaus. Brian is one of the owners of Synergy Fitness. He has sat in on the events committee meetings, at least the last one I attended. Brian was there. He's asked to be involved as a township resident and try to be a little more active in our community and think that he can make a difference. He's also very pro youth sports, as well as just generalized community activities. So he does have an interest in serving on our events committee, and we need to formalize that if the board agrees.
Please take a motion.
Takes a motion.
I so move to accept his request to be on the events committee.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Brian, thank you very much. Welcome to the events committee formally. Next item on your agenda is consider the PAR Plan Insurance 2015 renewal proposal. You do have a transmittal in your packet from Manager Gerard dated January 22nd. Attached for your consideration is the 2015 renewal proposal for our PAR Plan insurance coverage. PAR Plan package includes all of our lines of coverage, such as general liability, property, buildings, protection, vehicles, errors and omissions, recreation, and public officials liability. Proposed renewal premium of $25,276 is a $1,024 reduction in the 2014 premium, reflective of our cancellation of the builder's risk insurance during the township facilities construction, and with the addition of specified coverage for community recreation and events. He is recommending that we authorize acceptance of the 2015 power plan renewal proposal and designate the manager as signatory. Anything to add, Manager Gerard?
Not really to add. We have gone out several times on bids on this package, and Power Plan, which is the Michigan Township Association participating plan, it's the short term for it, Power Plan, has always come in as the favored low bid. We have had very good history with them over the last 12, 13 years that I've been here. Claims that we've had have been promptly addressed and equitably dealt with, and historically, the premium has gone down slightly each year or stayed the same. I don't recall any years where the premium actually went up. We have made several changes to the coverage this year. Notably, we had added builder's risk the last 2 years when we were building the buildings. We assumed the builder's risk policy. That has been eliminated. However, we have added in protections that we did not previously have for specific recreational events like our community days under the events that the Community Events Committee has, in any of the more potential injury aspects that we're now going into with ice rinks and things such as that. So those coverages are in place along with expanded liability coverage.
Board member questions?
Do we not also get some kind of a refund from them or dividend during the year?
It's what we get back. I think what you're referring to is the workers' compensation coverage, which is also part of this. It's a codicil to this package, basically, but it's a specified workers' compensation plan, and that's what we get the rebates from based upon injuries, which we have an excellent record of for.
That's something like 2 or 3 times a year that they'll
Correct.
get a rebate and decreases our total costs.
Absolutely. That does show up in reports to you when those come in. You see those rebates as they come back.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Power Plan Insurance 2015 renewal proposal.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. If there's no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is 10C, consider the fire rescue officer appointment recommendation. You do have a transmittal dated February 3rd, 2015 in your packet from Manager Gerard. The selection process for appointment recommendations for the 2015 fire rescue officers is ongoing. The eligibility criteria for appointment is established by position and requires completion of the fire rescue officer training program by December 31st as established by the Township Board. As of this date, I recommend the following appointments predicated upon the established criteria. Assistant Fire Rescue Chief Dan Shanahan, Fire Marshal Ron DeMars, Ladder Lieutenant John DeMay, Rescue Lieutenant Rob Cochran. The remaining fire rescue officer appointment recommendations are anticipated for your February 17th meeting. Manager Gerard, anything else?
Not a whole lot more to add. I am working with department leadership. Basically, with the roster, we have a roster of those individuals that have completed the fire training, and we're going through those. We're unable to get together today to finish that off, so that's why we're pushing the rest of them off to the 17th.
Any board member comment or questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion then to accept the manager's recommendation for the officers' positions for the Fire and Rescue Department as noted.
So moved.
Second.
No other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the manager's report. Manager Gerard.
Very briefly, I won't take much of your time. You do have a printed report. The main thing that I wanted to address, again, follows back on 2 items. First of all, there had been several questions about MERS. We did have the MERS staff here today to do a morning break, basically, which was for all of the MERS participants in the area. We had about 35 folks that were here. working with Tara Langham, and she will be coming to your meeting on the 17th to answer any questions that you have and make a presentation to you regarding our retirement system, which Treasurer Johnson has asked several times for some background information. So that will occur at your meeting on the 17th under privileged comment at the beginning of the meeting. Second item is we have done some calculations on what the immediate impact and the long-term impact is of the Supreme Court's rejection of our case. It's going to hurt, basically. We have not yet formally received our notice telling us from the tax tribunal to reimburse the big boxes that were affected immediately. That is going to cost the general fund almost $185,000 out of our fund balance. That is for taxes that were collected in 2012, 2013, and 2014. Those monies, by and large, have been expended in operations, so it is going to dip into our fund balance, which this board has been very diligent about trying to build up for emergency issues. It will take approximately 50% of that fund balance right off the bat. Deputy Treasurer Storch, Assessor Storch, who holds both of those positions, is calculating out what the projected impact for 2015 and 16 is based upon what we anticipate to occur in this next round of challenges as the impact of this expands to other businesses. Countywide, it's calculated right now to be about $1.9 million. Of that, we're going to have to assume approximately $500,000, about $500,000 with all of our operations. Township operations, fire, roads, library. We'll have about a $500,000 impact in 2015. So that's where we are.
Questions for Manager Gerard? Pete?
The only question that we have too is the Commerce Drive and Warner Street walkways. Come up in our meeting earlier.
Yeah, we are still struggling with that. Basically, we're still on Warner in particular. We're still struggling with property owners piling the ice up, basically in the way. Our snow blower will not impact that ice. We have to use either the loader or get the road commission to do that. They don't have an option. I don't blame the residents. There's not enough room in those front yards along Warner Street to really do anything else. So as they plow their driveway, they create 4 or 5 foot high berms along the bike path, and we just can't touch that with our equipment. So that's something we are struggling with.
What kind of answer are we going to have for people?
Well, every time they come by and plow, they fill it up again. I don't know what it's been like in your driveways, but I know every time they plow my street, I end up with a foot or two at the end of my driveway that ends up in the berm on the side again. And we're going to keep at it as good as we can, but the road commission, again, it's
I
tied
think if we
somewhat
do it
to their
every time
schedule.
that it snows or something, it wouldn't be as much as it is now, so.
Well,
We have
that's,
to have somebody designated just to do it when it snows. You get out there and do it, maybe if we can.
it's not just when it snows, because basically what they're trying to do is peel the mat off that's been packed down, and you get those huge chunks of ice that I think we all recognize that we've seen in our driveways. You get those piled up on the side, and they pack down, and that's the kind of stuff that will kill our snow blower.
Either we have to do it or we're not going to do it.
Well, we have to use the loader. That's all there is to it. We just have to use the loader and break those
But
through.
once we break it, if they keep up on it,
Mhm.
as soon as it snows, it designates someone to get on the plow and just go do it, and then we can try to tell the people that we can do that.
Keeping up on it's the tough part.
Well,
So
we have
we'll
to
do the best
schedule-
we can.
We'll schedule somebody into that then.
Is that it, Pete?
That's it, thank you.
One question, the status of the building sale in that?
That is in process, and that's something that I'd like to talk with the board about. We have the purchase agreement in place. It is still tied up in the circuit court. The documents have been completed and filed. One of the options that we have is to put the buildings on the market. I do have other buyers that are interested. They're not interested in the entire package, as our current purchase agreement has. They want to break it up, which means a significant difference in terms of the value. I would like to put together a communication to you to lay it all out for you so you can take a look at it and make a decision on what you want to do. One of the options that we have is to put the package out for bids, basically, and if the court processing is completed within time, go forward with the purchase agreement. If not, see if there's another buyer.
Say, put something together for us to look at and
Yep.
then really, it's been hanging fire for so long right now, and I think the reason it's in circuit court is out of our hands, and that's someone else's problem. We have to look at our own at this point in time.
Yeah, and the issue that we've got is until that process is completed, the financing entity is not going to release the funds until that's completed, so.
Clerk Terry?
Yeah, I'd like to also, I know February is a bad month, but maybe a open house in March for the new Public Works facility, a spring
We should-
open house.
We should actually be able to do that this month.
Okay.
We should.
Get that scheduled and, like I said, get the residents in to see that building, because they'll
Yeah.
be pretty impressed with it.
All the vehicles are now in the single building. It's pretty well organized now, so we'll be able to get something set up. I'll work with Kirk on that and get something set up within the next week or two for the board members. We'll set a couple of times for you to go through. I realize everybody can't make it at the same time, but I'll arrange several times so you can take a walk through.
Well, maybe, yeah, have a board member and maybe have just a couple sessions for the general public too.
Oh, yeah, we'd like to get you guys through first so you know what you're looking at and then open it to the public.
Ernie, I did talk to Randy yesterday about the property sale as well, and I told him that my recommendation would have been that, I know the board has been anxious to see us divest ourselves of that property. It certainly has a cost associated with it because we're paying interest on the funds we borrowed for this facility, which a big chunk of that's going right down to pay the principal, you know, once we have that sale completed. There's certainly, we recognize there's a premium involved when somebody can buy that property in bulk, especially if they also own property in the area already, like the proposed purchaser does, which makes it much more valuable chunk of property when it can all be contiguous to someone. My recommendation is that we don't try to break it up and sell off parcels. We do have owners who are interested in one piece or another. But I think that, you know, Randy's proposal, I'd like to see him come to us. It would be, what I told Randy yesterday is, let the intended purchaser that we had the purchase agreement with know that we would still honor that. But in the meantime, while they're sorting out their litigation issues, that we may make that available to someone on a first-come, first-served basis if they want to meet that price and purchase the entire property, that it would enable us to move the sale along that much quicker. And as much as we want to work with the proposed purchaser, I think that we've been in this building for a year and a half now, and, you know, we held on to it partly because of the Public Works building, but they've been in their building for, I don't know, 6 or 7
6 months.
now, so I think it's time that we did something to move on that property, and it certainly, there is a cost associated with not doing anything, and that is paying the interest on the note. So if you could get that out, Randy, to the board, what your proposal would be, we'd like to see it preferably this week.
I'd like to try and get it out to you tomorrow. It's mostly done.
Okay. The other thing I have for you is just a question. Have, now that we know kind of where we're at with the tax tribunal revenue, we understand that that is going to have an impact on our road rehabilitation plan, and we just passed that millage in November, and I have some concerns about, with the amount that we had proposed to complete over the next 3 years, we are clearly not going to have as much revenue coming in as we would have anticipated with that millage based on the valuations that we're going to have on the commercial side. And I think the board would like to see something, at least by the next meeting, at least some projections, because if we need to go to the people and either scale back the project or change the scope of work that we're doing, I think we have to be honest with folks, because they were sold with the concept that we could do all of these things over the course of 3 years and pay it back over 15. And if there are going to be any changes, I think the sooner rather than later would be in everyone's best interest.
Agreed. Now, we have started those discussions. I've met with Dave, who's the chair of the roads committee, and Jason with our planner. We've started looking at that. Our initial projection at this point is our original estimation of that 1.5 mil over the time frame we were talking about, and we did take into consideration the 12 big boxes that were involved, was about a little over $7 million, about 7.5, was it, Dave? $7.7 million over that total time frame, which is what we were going to be looking to bond. Our rough calculations at this point, and we're still working on them, basically, is worst-case scenario, it's going to now produce about $5 million, about $2.7 million less, which is not enough to do what we had originally planned to do for the entire time frame. We're looking at now what kind of modifications to that plan might be necessary for us to go forward with the construction that we planned and possibly shortening the maintenance period beyond, what options that we have. Definitely, though, I think we're all in agreement that we need to get back to the residents and let them know what the impact of these decisions are, and basically either talk about going back to the residents in May for possibly a revised road plan or possibly a higher millage, and I don't know that a higher millage would be acceptable. So we are working on that currently, and I agree with you that we're going to put a report together for you. We're working with our bond counsel and with the attorney to determine just what exactly we can do. And some of it hinges upon how far this expands in terms of whether it gets down to some of the businesses that we think that it might. And that was one of the concerns that the MTA identified, and Trustee LaRue mentioned that, is if you go really public with this, you might, get to people who don't know about it, and now they'll file appeals. Well, people are going to know about it. That's not the threat. The threat is, or not the threat, but the intent is to have them be aware before they're approached, and not have them simply stipulate. So that's where we're at. We're looking at it. We're going to get back with you and give you some advice. Now, I wasn't aware that there was an August election being talked about now, the general primary. I don't know if that would be something we might want to look at as well. But May is coming up, and we'll work with Clerk Rotari about determining what our deadline is for getting something out to May. But initially, we need to be informing the residents that there is a potential issue here. And I don't know the best way to do that. It's probably in writing of some sort with utility bills. Garbage bill would get to almost everybody in the township.
Thanks, Randy. Any other questions for Manager Gerard Lynn?
A couple then, kind of dovetailing off. First, I was thinking if whatever we do with the road millage projects, we're going to have to be aware from the road committee's standpoint of the ice and the snow and stuff. So when we start restructuring some of these roads, maybe we don't put the walkways on, or maybe we put them on one side versus the other, just, for them to really consider. And then I'm just wondering, you kind of touched on it a little, is there anything you've had to do so far because of the tax tribunal, this 185 has to come out of, just the one fund, but is there anything we've had to start thinking about cutting?
Oh, yeah.
Even for this year?
Oh, yeah. We
Committed to, whether it's
had some
recreation
discussion
or-
with the Recreation Committee already this evening about our potential to not be able to provide matches. The 26% match for grants and things such as that. We have commitments already that we've made. I mean, we've made commitments to the ice rink and the warming hut, and we've made some commitments to the building. We've got the commitments that we have here. Some projects that we've financed that we're already committed to those. So. Is there a potential that we may have to back away from some things? Yeah, there is, and we're going through that right now, trying to determine what those might be and what the impact might be. The fund balance, and you've got it in your packet, basically, the report that Lois put in as of December of 14. Fund balance in the general fund was around $350,000. That's the unencumbered fund balance. Well, you can take $187,000 of that, more than half is going to be gone. Fire department's going to be hit similarly. Library is going to be hit similarly. It's going to be across all lines. There'll be a significant hit in the fund balances. Some are better off than others. The fire department, we've had the discussion through the budget process about the propriety of a fund balance. So that might be part of where some of it goes, is to fund that liability that they have. So it's going to be fairly far-reaching. We may not be able to put the $50,000 towards roads that we typically do. We may not be able to do some of the things in township improvements that we typically do. We may have to think twice about whether we're contributing to the fireworks and to things such as that. We have to keep our operations going. There are certain things that we must do. There are others that are optional, and the optionals are the ones that we would have to look at.
Clerk Rotari?
All right, I pulled up our election dates for this year. It looks to me that February 10th is the last day to get anything for the May election on the ballot, so that's probably not going to work. We do have an option, though. We can have a special election just only by the township, either in August or November. We incur the cost of it, but those are available to us if we so desired and move forward with a question. And I would probably recommend doing that because February 10th isn't going to be we can't get it done in time. Yeah, so what we might have to do is look at an August election or November election, and like I said, we can hold those, but that's going to be on our dime for our local township questions. So,
Well, within a week, we may be able to come to some, well, it's going to be difficult because it'll be a guess. We don't have Board of Review until, Board of Review won't be until March, and that's where we'll get hit with some of these things.
Unfortunately, we just don't have there's no way we're going to have it available in that ballot.
well, then like I said, then our option is we can formulate a plan and have an election in possibly August or November with better estimates on things. And it's like I say, it's on our dime, but we can do that if we so desire.
Other questions for Manager Gerard? Pete?
On this road issue, I just want to make sure if somebody asks you a question, you don't have the answer, have them call up here and we can get the answer to them, because the last thing we want to do is have misinformation out there. Right now, the project is sort of lagging right now because we don't have the engineering done and stuff like that until we know where we got the money. But we're not going to do a half a job as of now. We'll have to go and ask and be honest with the people. We were honest for the 10 meetings that we had, Dave and myself and the road committee and Jason, and we were pretty upfront with them, and they appreciated that. We told them exactly what was going to happen. So if it's not going to happen, we'll be right up front with them. If you don't have the answer, don't give them half answers. Have them call up here and get the right answer.
Yeah, we are not, at this point, we are not saying we can't do the project.
Right.
What we're saying is we may have to modify the project, and the way we've been talking about modifying the project is instead of funding a 12 to 15-year maintenance period, we may scale that back and still be able to do the construction project. That's what we're trying to evaluate right now. The unknown there is just how bad is our tax revenue going to be impacted by the March Board of Review.
Thanks, Randy. Close Manager's report and move to 10E, bills payable. Secretary?
Yeah, the reason we pulled this was actually we had to approve the PAR plan before we paid the bill for it. So I think we had to put the cart before the horse. So I'll make a motion to approve the bills payable, and I'll get that amount here.
Second.
183.29.
Okay, and Lynn seconded it.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion before us to approve the bills payable in the amount of $163,183.29. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. This will bring us up to the second public comment period. Anyone wishing to address the board?
I apologize, I was a little remiss in not getting you an update on the warming house for this meeting. We're still progressing along the lines that we had discussed at the last meeting with getting our own heater in there to get the frost out, and what's happened so far is we've got Board Light and Power has hooked power up into the building, so we're not on temporary power anymore. Semco has put a meter template on the side of the building, and the plumbing and heating contractor will have that furnace hooked up and operational by the end of the week, first part of the next week at the latest. We're still waiting for a rough-in permit or approval from the county. We expect to have that by the end of the week, and as quick as we get that, we're going to insulate it and we can turn the heat on and start getting the frost out. So that's where that's at.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Anyone? Ernie?
I saved the best for the last. February 17th is the last day to pay taxes without a penalty. So if you're kind of thinking about it, I would suggest that you do it now and get it over with and don't worry about a penalty in that. So February 17th is it. Otherwise, we will start charging you penalty.
Thanks, Ernie. Anyone else? Lynn?
No, sir.
Diana? Clerk Jerry?
Going back to that road project, I do think it's, from my point of view, I mean, if we do have to have a special election on our dime, I think it's worth it. We'll be, when we know all the impacts, hopefully, we can go back to the residents and say, when we approved that millage, this is what it was predicated on. Things have changed, and we're being upfront and honest with you on this, and, maybe we have to go out further. More years instead of 15, maybe we go 20, 25, something like that. But I do think if we did have a special election with everything laid out, that would be well worth the money to do that. It's about $3,000 to do that, but in the scheme of things, I think that's a lot better to do than not to do the project correct.
Dan, anything? Pete? Andy?
Just one final comment for those of you who are engaged in business or any enterprise where you're exchanging goods or services for finance. Watch your 20s, 10s, and 5s. There are currently counterfeit bills being circulated around the county in those denominations. The $5 bills are tough to identify. The paper feels like it's been washed through a washing machine, and it doesn't have the security bar in it. But the 20s and the 10s, in the lower right-hand corner where there's the holographic denomination, if it doesn't change color as you move it about 45 degrees, it's not real. So that's one of the tests for the 10s and the 5s. So be cautious. Also, the 5s all have the same serial number so far.
Thanks, Randy. I have a couple comments. One on the ice rink. It has been getting used on a pretty regular basis. I know that there are a couple neighbors to the north and to the west who have some concerns about flying pucks. Apparently, a lot of that had to do with Marquette Royals, as well as Marquette Junior Hockey practice there and practicing slap shots at the goalies, shooting a few pucks out of the rink. We did have Marquette Fence look at it. The cost was very prohibitive to, at this point, although we do have plans in the spring as part of our landscaping and finalization of that field to increase fencing, and we're going to have neighbor-friendly fence along the western side. I do have, and I said it earlier, and I left town before I could get it out. Tomorrow I will snowshoe back to the shed and dig out the net that I have. It's like 60 feet long by 15 feet wide. We can stretch it between the light poles on the west. I'm sure that it would block any of the pucks going to the west out of the rink for a short-term fix. It's a good solid net. It's been used for batting cage for many years. And then on the north, we'll continue to look at either netting across the top. But I just wanted you to know that we did hear your concerns. We are concerned with them. We are taking actions to address them. The other one is for whoever the anonymous neighbor from South Vandenboom Road who left the notice at my house last week while I was out of town with concerns about the extension of the sewer and water lines during the road reconstruction that is proposed for next summer. We do not have figures for residents and what that cost will be. I can appreciate that you have some concerns about what that will look like. Your concerns that your road is not being plowed this winter because it has something to do with to show how bad the road is before we repair it next year, I can assure you is not true. Marquette Township does not control the snow plowing along Vandenboom Road or any other road for that matter. That is associated with the Marquette County Road Commission. Those two things are not tied together whatsoever. If you have any further concerns, please feel free to stop by and ask questions either here at the office, at my home at 945 South Vandenboom Road, or you can always call me at 458-1956. Thank you.
One more comment.
Clerk Rattari?
On that ice rink comment, I was talking to the supervisor. I was out there maybe a week or two ago in the dark, and I said, it's in the middle is fine. On the two ends, it's a little dark, you know. I said maybe if we could put a light pole on each end with the light and brighten up the ends, and then you could hang a net off that light pole too. That probably would help, you know, with the stringing of the net for that area. So that's just a comment that when I was out there, maybe that could help with that situation to the north anyway.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Randy. If there's nothing else, we'll close board member comment and entertain one last motion this evening.
So move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. We are adjourned.